The amber liquid in my glass caught the dim light of the bar, creating golden fractals that danced across the polished mahogany counter. I traced the rim with my fingertip, barely listening to Marcus drone on about his cryptocurrency portfolio. This was a mistake. I'd known at the moment he'd suggested this place, the Meridian, an upscale bar where velvet curtains hung like theater drapes, and every patron looked like they belonged in a different tax bracket than mine. Marcus continued, his teeth too white, his cologne too strong. And that's when I realized blockchain technology could revolutionize everything. I nodded mechanically. My navy dress suddenly felt too tight around my ribs. Why had I agreed to this? Loneliness, probably. 3 years of working as an executive assistant had left my social life barren, a desert of declined invitations and rain-checked coffee dates. When Marcus from accounting had asked me out, I'd said yes before my brain could manufacture an excuse. The ice in my drink shifted, clinking softly. I took a small sip, letting the burn of whiskey ground me. Around us, conversations hummed, a symphony of clinking glasses, muted laughter, and sultry jazz bleeding from invisible speakers. The air smelled of expensive leather, tobacco, and something darker, something that made the hair on my arms stand at attention. "Emma, are you listening?" Marcus asked.
Sorry. Yes.
Blockchain, revolutionary. I forced a smile, guilt needling my conscience. Marcus wasn't terrible. He was just not interesting. Not dangerous. Not. I cut that thought off before it could form fully. "I need to use the restroom," I said, already sliding off the bar stool. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I navigated through the Thursday evening crowd. The bathroom was a sanctuary of white marble and gold fixtures. I braced my hands against the sink, staring at my reflection. My brown eyes looked tired, shadows beneath them betraying too many late nights at the office, too many hours spent organizing someone else's life while mine collected dust. I adjusted my dress, reapplied my lipstick, a deep red I'd bought on impulse and never had the courage to wear until tonight. "You're fine," I whispered to my reflection. Normal people go on normal dates, but even as I said it, something twisted in my stomach, a warning, a premonition. When I emerged from the bathroom, the atmosphere had shifted. It was subtle, like the moment before a storm when the air pressure changes and every animal knows to seek shelter. People's voices had dropped an octave. Eyes darted toward the entrance. And then I saw why. He stood near the bar's entrance, and the world seemed to rearrange itself around him. Dante Moretti, my employer, my boss for the past 3 years, the man whose coffee I prepared, whose meetings I scheduled, whose secrets I kept locked behind my teeth. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my annual rent, tailored so precisely it looked like a second skin. His dark hair was pushed back, revealing the sharp architecture of his face, all angles and shadows. Beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. Dangerous. Precise. 2 men flanked him, hulking figures in dark clothes whose eyes constantly scanned the room. My breath caught in my throat. He never came to places like this. Dante Moretti operated from his office, that fortress of glass and steel on the 52nd floor, or from his estate in the hills. He attended private meetings, exclusive clubs, places where cameras weren't allowed and witnesses didn't talk. Why was he here? His gaze swept across the bar, methodical and thorough. And when those dark eyes landed on me, everything stopped. Time, breath, heartbeat. His expression didn't change. It never did. But something flickered in those depths, something that made my skin prickle with awareness, recognition, possession. And beneath it all, something that looked disturbingly like fury. He moved toward me with predatory grace, his bodyguards creating a path through the crowd without touching anyone. People simply moved, as if their survival instincts recognized what their conscious minds might not, that this was a man who didn't ask for space. He took it. "Ms. Reeves." His voice was low, controlled, but I'd worked for him long enough to hear the edge beneath the silk. "I didn't expect to find you here." My mouth went dry. "Mr. Moretti, this is my night off." "So I see." His eyes cut to Marcus, who had appeared at my elbow, looking confused and slightly intimidated. "Good instincts, Marcus." And who is this? There was no polite way to interpret that question. It was territorial, possessive, the kind of question that had no right answer. Marcus Chun from accounting. Marcus extended his hand, either brave or oblivious. I work in the... I know where you work. Dante didn't shake his hand. His attention returned to me, and the weight of it was physical, suffocating. Ms. Reeves, I need to speak with you privately. I'm actually on a date, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Somewhere in my chest, something reckless bloomed. 3 years of careful professionalism, of maintaining boundaries, of pretending I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered sometimes. It can wait until tomorrow. The temperature in the immediate vicinity dropped 10 degrees. One of Dante's bodyguards shifted closer, but Dante raised one finger, barely a movement, and the man froze. That was the thing about Dante Moretti. He didn't need to yell. He didn't need to threaten. His power was in the quiet, in the absolute certainty that he would be obeyed.
A date.
He repeated the words like they tasted wrong. His jaw tightened, the only sign of emotion crossing that controlled facade. You went on a date. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Yes. I lifted my chin, even as my pulse hammered against my throat. Is that a problem? We need to discuss your schedule for tomorrow. His words were clipped, precise. There have been changes. Changes that require interrupting my personal time. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Your personal time is my concern when it affects your performance. My performance has been exemplary for 3 years. The words came out sharper than intended. Maybe it was the whiskey. Maybe it was 3 years of swallowing everything I felt whenever Dante looked at me with those unfathomable eyes. Exemplary. He stepped closer, invading my space with the confidence of someone who owned every room he entered. The scent of him, sandalwood and something darker, something that made me think of midnight and bad decisions, wrapped around me. And yet here you are, making questionable choices. Questionable. My hands clenched into fists. Going on a date is questionable? With him. Dante's gaze flicked to Marcus with such withering dismissal that I actually felt sorry for the man. Yes. Marcus cleared his throat. Look, maybe I should. That would be wise, Dante said, still looking at me.
No.
I turned to Marcus, guilt and anger warring in my chest. Marcus, I'm so sorry. This is inappropriate and unprofessional and you don't deserve. It's fine. Marcus was already backing away, his survival instincts finally kicking in. Well, we can reschedule or not. Yeah. He practically fled toward the exit. I watched him go, my jaw tight enough to crack teeth. When I turned back to Dante, the fury I'd been suppressing for 3 years finally found its voice. That was completely out of line. Was it? He moved even closer, forcing me back against the bar. His bodyguards positioned themselves to block us from view, creating a pocket of privacy in the crowded space. You want to discuss what's out of line, Emma? He never used my first name. Never. It was always Ms. Reeves, maintaining that professional distance, that careful boundary between employer and employee. Hearing it now, in that low, dangerous tone, felt like a violation, like intimacy without permission. You had no right. I have every right. His hand came up, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his palm near my cheek. Do you have any idea what you are to me? My heart stuttered. Your assistant. My assistant. He repeated it like it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard.
Yes.
My assistant. The woman who knows where I am every moment of every day. Who handles my communications. Who has access to information that could destroy empires. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. The woman who could ruin me with a single phone call to the wrong people. Ice flooded my veins. We'd never spoken about this, about what he really was, what his business ventures actually entailed. It was an unspoken agreement. I organized his legitimate meetings and didn't ask questions about the ones that weren't in the calendar. I would never. I know. His hand finally made contact, his fingers curling around my jaw with surprising gentleness. That's not what concerns me. Then what? The words came out breathless as his thumb brushed across my lower lip, and my entire body responded, a traitorous flush of heat that made me hate myself even as I leaned into his touch. What concerns me, he said, his eyes dark and intense and burning with something I couldn't name, is watching you smile at another man. Watching you in that dress. His gaze dragged down my body and back up, possessive and hungry. A dress I've never seen before. Knowing you got ready for him. Knowing you laughed for him. You're jealous. The realization escaped before I could stop it. Jealous. He laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. Such a small word for what I feel right now. His other hand found my waist, pulling me against him, and I could feel the tension vibrating through his body. Control barely maintained, danger barely leashed. You don't own me, I whispered. Don't I? His forehead touched mine. Tell me you don't think about me. Tell me you don't know exactly how I take my coffee, because you've memorized everything about me. Tell me you don't hold your breath when I stand too close. I couldn't tell him any of those things because they would be lies. This is wrong, I said instead. Probably. His nose brushed against my cheek, his lips hovering near my ear. But you went on a date, Emma. You let another man look at you, touch you. His grip tightened. That's what's wrong. Mr. Moretti, one of his bodyguards, spoke quietly. We have a situation. The spell broke. Dante stepped back, his expression smoothing into that impenetrable mask he wore like armor. But his eyes were still burning.
We're leaving, he said.
Not to his bodyguard. To me. I'm not going anywhere with you. Yes. He grabbed my clutch from the bar, tucked my coat over his arm.
You are.
Because in about 30 seconds, some very interested parties are going to walk through that door looking for me. And you, Emma, are the last person who should be anywhere near me when they arrive. As if summoned by his words, the bar's entrance opened. 3 men in expensive suits walked in, their eyes scanning the crowd with professional efficiency. Dante's hand wrapped around my wrist. Not rough, but absolutely unyielding. Come with me now, or I leave you to explain to them why you're here. Your choice. He was already moving, pulling me toward a back exit I hadn't noticed before. His bodyguards fell into formation around us, and I had no choice but to follow or be dragged. The last thing I saw before we disappeared through the door was Marcus' abandoned drink on the bar, ice melting into expensive whiskey, and my reflection in the mirror behind it, a woman who looked like she'd just made a terrible, irreversible mistake. The alley behind the Meridian smelled like rain and garbage, a jarring contrast to the perfumed luxury we'd just left behind. Dante's grip on my wrist remained firm as he guided me toward a sleek black SUV idling in the shadows, its windows tinted so dark they looked like pools of oil. One of his bodyguards, the taller one with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, opened the rear door. Dante released my wrist only to place his hand on the small of my back, guiding me inside with a gentleness that contradicted the steel in his movements. I slid across buttersoft leather seats, my heart hammering so hard I was certain everyone could hear it. Dante followed, settling beside me with predatory ease. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded unnervingly like a vault ceiling shut. Drive, Dante instructed. The privacy screen was already up, separating us from his men in the front. The vehicle pulled smoothly into traffic, and suddenly I was trapped in a confined space with a man I'd spent 3 years trying not to think about outside of office hours. The interior lights were dim, casting his face in sharp relief. All shadows and angles, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure.
Who were those men?
My voice sounded steadier than I felt. No one you need to worry about. He was texting rapidly on one of his phones, his jaw tight. Provided you do exactly as I say. Anger flared bright and hot in my chest, burning away the fear. I'm not one of your soldiers, Mr. Moretti. You can't what? He pocketed his phone, his full attention swinging to me like a spotlight. Can't protect you? Can't remove you from a situation where your presence could get you killed. Killed. The words stuck in my throat. You're being dramatic. Am I? He leaned closer, and I pressed back against the leather seat. Tell me, Emma, what do you think those men would do if they knew who you were? If they realized the woman sitting at that bar looking absolutely. His gaze raked over me again. Devastating. Was the same woman who processes my financial transactions? Who knows my schedule? Who could testify about my whereabouts on any given day? The implications settled over me like a wet blanket. Heavy, suffocating. They'd use me against you, I whispered. Or they'd eliminate you to eliminate the liability. His fingers found a strand of my hair that had escaped its careful styling, twirling it between his fingers. Do you understand now why I don't permit you to be visible? Why you work for my private office? Why you're not listed on any company directory? Why I've spent 3 years keeping you hidden? You never explained. I shouldn't have to. His voice hardened. You're intelligent enough to read between the lines, to understand what it means that half my meetings aren't on the books, that certain phone calls get routed through encrypted lines, that men who look like they could snap necks with their bare hands follow me everywhere. I swallowed hard. I told myself it was just security, that successful businessmen need protection. And the rest, the parts you chose not to think about. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, a touch so gentle it made my chest ache. I chose to keep my job, to pay my rent, to not ask questions. Smart girl. But he didn't sound pleased. He sounded resigned. Yet not smart enough to stay away from public places. Not smart enough to avoid drawing attention to yourself. I can't live in a cage. The words burst out before I could stop them. I can't spend my entire life invisible because you've decided I'm some kind of liability. You're not a liability. His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Your vulnerability. My vulnerability. And in my world, that's infinitely more dangerous. The SUV turned sharply, and I grabbed the door handle to steady myself. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. We were heading away from downtown, toward the hills where estates sprawled behind gates and security cameras. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. He released my face, but his hand found my knee, his palm warm through the thin fabric of my dress. My home. No. I tried to shift away, but there was nowhere to go. Take me to my apartment. Your apartment with the broken lock on the lobby door? The one where anyone could walk in and find apartment 4B. His fingers tightened on my knee. Absolutely not. How do you know my lock is broken? His silence was answer enough. You've been watching me. It wasn't a question. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, it sent a confusing thrill down my spine. For how long? Since the day you walked into my office 3 years ago, wearing a dress 2 sizes too big and shoes with worn heels, and told me you'd be the best assistant I'd ever had. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You were right. Incidentally, that's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. The SUV slowed, approaching a gate flanked by stone pillars. The gate swung open silently, apparently expected, and we drove through onto a winding driveway lined with manicured hedges. Dante Moretti's estate emerged from the darkness, like something out of a Gothic novel, all stone and glass and sharp modern lines, lit from within by golden light. It sprawled across the hilltop, commanding a view of the entire city below. I'd scheduled deliveries here, arranged for contractors, even organized a charity gala in the gardens last spring, but I'd never been inside, never crossed the threshold from professional distance into personal territory. I can't be here, I said, panic rising in my throat. You can. You will. The SUV stopped beneath a portico, and Dante's door was immediately opened by another bodyguard. This one shorter, stockier, with eyes that missed nothing. You'll stay here tonight where I know you're safe. Tomorrow, we'll discuss arrangements. Arrangements? But he was already exiting the vehicle, extending his hand to help me out. I stared at that hand. Elegant fingers, calluses on the palm that suggested he did more than sign papers and make phone calls. A silver ring on his right hand engraved with symbols I didn't recognize. Taking his hand felt like accepting something I couldn't take back. I took it anyway. His fingers closed around mine, warm and sure, and he pulled me out into the cool night air. The scent of jasmine hung heavy in the darkness, mixed with the chlorine tang of what I assumed was a pool somewhere in the shadows. "Marco will show you to a guest room," Dante said, gesturing to the shorter bodyguard. "You'll find everything you need there. We'll talk in the morning." "Wait." I caught his arm as he turned to leave. Beneath the expensive fabric, his muscles were solid, tense. "You can't just kidnap me and then kidnap." His eyebrows rose. "You came willingly. Under duress. Under protection." He covered my hand with his own. "There's a difference." "Is there?" I searched his face for some sign of the man I'd worked alongside for 3 years, the controlled, distant employer who never raised his voice or showed emotion beyond mild disapproval. Because right now, it felt like you're keeping me prisoner. Something shifted in his expression, softened. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles that sent heat racing through my veins. Sunlight filtered through the gauzy curtains, painting golden stripes across the unfamiliar ceiling. For a disoriented moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory crashed back. The bar, Dante's possessive grip, this gilded cage masquerading as a guest room. I sat up, my hair tangled around my shoulders. The silk nightgown twisted from a restless night of fractured sleep. The clock on the nightstand reads 7:47 a.m., Friday morning. I should have been in the office by now, brewing Dante's first espresso of the day, reviewing his schedule, maintaining the careful routine we'd built over 3 years. Instead, I was in his home, wearing clothes he'd provided, trapped in a situation I didn't fully understand. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Miss Reeves," a woman's voice, accented and polite. "May I come in?" "Yes." The door opened to reveal a woman in her 50s dressed in simple black pants and a crisp white shirt. Her gray hair was pulled into a neat bun, and her dark eyes assessed me with the efficiency of someone who'd spent a lifetime in service. "I'm Teresa, Mr. Moretti's housekeeper. He asked me to let you know breakfast is ready when you are." She set a tray on the dresser, coffee, orange juice, a croissant that smelled like it had just been baked. "He's in his study, third door on the left downstairs." "Thank you." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how thin the nightgown was. "Teresa, can I ask you something?" Her expression remained professionally neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Understanding, maybe, or pity. Does Mr. Moretti bring women here often?" "Never." The word was immediate, definitive. "In 15 years, you're the first woman who stayed overnight in this house who wasn't family or staff." She moved toward the door, then paused.
"He's not what people think, miss."
"He's not easy, but he's not cruel. Whatever he's done, whatever rules he's broken, it's because he believes he's protecting you." She left before I could respond. I showered in the marble bathroom using products that smelled of lavender and vanilla. The dress Dante had provided fit perfectly. Of course it did. The shoes were Italian leather, broken in just enough to be comfortable. Even the makeup in the shopping bag matched my usual palette. It was unnerving, being known so completely by someone I tried to keep at arm's length. I braided my damp hair over one shoulder and steeled myself. Time to face whatever negotiation Dante had planned. The house was quieter in daylight, but no less imposing. My footsteps echoed on marble as I descended the staircase. Somewhere I could hear voices. Teresa speaking rapid Italian to someone. Water running. The distant hum of what might have been a vacuum. Normal household sounds in a house that was anything but normal. I found the study easily. The door was ajar, and through it I could see Dante sitting behind a massive desk, his attention fixed on a laptop screen. He'd changed from last night's suit into dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made him look younger, less intimidating, almost human. Then he looked up, and those dark eyes pinned me in place, and I remembered exactly what he was. Predator, possessor, man who declared I belonged to him without asking if I agreed. "Come in." He closed the laptop, giving me his full attention. "Coffee. I had some upstairs." I stepped into the study, keeping the desk between us like a barrier. "We need to talk about last night." "I agree." He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Starting with why you felt the need to go on a date with someone completely unsuitable. Heat flooded my cheeks. Marcus is perfectly suitable. He's nice. He's normal. He's boring. Dante stood, rounding the desk with that fluid grace that always made me think of big cats. Dangerous, beautiful, deadly. He's beneath you in every possible way. Intelligence, ambition, passion. You don't know anything about him. I know he works in accounting. I know he drives a 7-year-old sedan and lives in a studio apartment in a mediocre neighborhood. I know he spent 15 minutes talking about cryptocurrency while you looked like you wanted to die. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. I know he's nothing like what you actually want. And what do I want? The challenge escaped before I could stop it. His hand came up, fingers threading through my braid, tugging just enough to make me gasp. You want someone who sees you, who knows that you take your coffee with too much cream and you bite your lip when you're concentrating, who notices when you wear a new perfume or stay up too late reading. His thumb traced my lower lip. You want someone who's been watching you for 3 years, memorizing every detail, falling deeper into obsession with each passing day. My breath caught. Dante, you want someone who will burn the world down before letting anyone hurt you. His forehead touched mine, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. Someone who left a meeting with men who could end my empire because I saw you sitting in a bar with another man and couldn't think of anything except getting you away from him. That's not healthy.
No.
His laugh was dark, self-deprecating. It's really not. But it's honest, which is more than you've been giving me. I pushed against his chest, needing space, needing air. He let me retreat, but his eyes tracked my every movement, predator watching prey. I've been perfectly honest. I'm your assistant. That's all I've ever been. Liar. The word was soft but cutting. You think I don't notice how you hold your breath when I stand too close? How your pulse jumps when I say your name? How you find excuses to touch my hand when you pass me documents? That's 3 months ago. You wore a perfume you'd never worn before. Something with jasmine. I complimented it. And you've worn it every day since. He moved closer again, backing me against a bookshelf. 2 months ago, I had a nightmare. I woke up shouting. You were at your desk outside my office. You'd stayed late to finish a project. And you came in without knocking. You didn't ask questions. You just sat beside me until my breathing steadied. I remembered that night, remembered the vulnerability in his eyes, quickly masked, the way his hand had found mine in the darkness. That's called being a good assistant. That's called caring. His hands braced on either side of my head, caging me in. And last night, when I touched your face, you leaned into it. When I pulled you close, you didn't fight. You melted. Stop. My voice cracked.
Why?
Because the truth is uncomfortable? Because you've spent 3 years pretending you don't feel what I feel? His nose brushed against my neck, inhaling deeply. Jasmine, you're wearing it now. Dante, this can't happen. I pressed my palms against his chest, feeling his heartbeat thundering beneath the expensive fabric. You're my employer. There are rules. If I wanted to keep you prisoner, Emma, you'd be in my bed right now, not in a guest room with a door that locks from the inside. His breath ghosted across my skin. But I'm trying to be a better man than my instincts want me to be. So go with Marco.
Rest.
And in the morning, we'll discuss why you felt the need to parade yourself in front of strangers when you've always known that you belong to me. He released my hand and disappeared into the house before I could form a response. Marco cleared his throat diplomatically. This way, miss. I followed him in a daze, my mind spinning. The interior of Dante's home was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive, tasteful, cold. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city lights below. Everything perfect, everything controlled. Like the man himself. Marco led me up a curved staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with closed doors. He stopped at one near the end, pushing it open. You'll be comfortable here, he said in accented English, Italian, probably. Most of Dante's inner circle had been with him since he immigrated from Sicily 15 years ago. If you need anything, there's a phone by the bed. Dial 0. Marco. I stopped him before he could leave. Those men at the bar. How dangerous are they? His expression remained carefully neutral. Dangerous enough that Mr. Moretti left a meeting to get you out of there. Dangerous enough that you shouldn't have been there in the first place. He paused. He's not trying to control you, miss. He's trying to keep you alive. He closed the door softly, leaving me alone in a room larger than my entire apartment. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, dressed in white linens that probably cost more than my monthly salary. French doors opened onto a balcony. An in-soot bathroom gleamed with marble and chrome. I kicked off my heels and walked to the balcony, pushing open the doors. The night air was cool against my flushed skin. Below, the city spread out like a carpet of stars, beautiful and distant and impossible to touch. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I'd forgotten I even had it. Marcus Chin. Hope you're okay. That was intense. Maybe we should just stay colleagues. I almost laughed. Poor Marcus. He'd wanted a simple date and instead got pulled into whatever dark orbit surrounded Dante Moretti. I replied, Emma, I'm so sorry about tonight. Yes, let's definitely just stay colleagues. You deserve better. His response was immediate. You too. Be careful. But it was too late for careful. I'd stopped being careful the moment I'd accepted this job 3 years ago, the moment I'd seen Dante Moretti across his desk and felt that dangerous pull of attraction mixed with fear. Another text appeared, this one from an unknown number. Unknown. Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow we negotiate the terms of your continued employment and your safety. I stared at those words, my heart rate picking up again. Terms. Safety. As if those things were negotiable. As if I had any choice in whatever came next. A soft knock at my door made me jump. Yes. It's Marco. Mr. Moretti wanted me to bring you these. The door opened a crack, and a garment bag was passed through, followed by a small shopping bag. A sleepwear, toiletries, clothes for tomorrow. How did he? But, of course. Dante knew my size. Probably knew what brand of toothpaste I used, what shampoo I preferred. He'd been watching me for 3 years. Thank you. I managed. The door closed again. I laid the bags on the bed and unzipped the garment bag. Inside was a silk nightgown in deep emerald green, designer label, probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. And for tomorrow, a simple but elegant dress, charcoal gray, professional but not severe. Shoes that would fit perfectly. Underwear still in packaging, exactly my size. The shopping bag contained luxury toiletries, a hairbrush, makeup remover, everything I could possibly need. IT should have been thoughtful. Instead, it felt like evidence. Evidence that Dante Moretti knew me better than I knew myself. That he'd been preparing for this moment, or one like it, for longer than tonight. I changed into the nightgown, removed my makeup, brushed my hair. The bed was as comfortable as it looked, the sheets cool against my skin, but sleep felt impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's face, the way he'd looked at me in the bar. Possessive, hungry, barely controlled. The way his hand had felt on my skin. The way he'd said my name like it was something precious and dangerous all at once. You belong to me. The words echoed in my mind. And I hated how much a part of me wanted them to be true. Hated that 3 years of professional distance had been obliterated in one evening, revealing the truth I'd been hiding from myself. I didn't just work for Dante Moretti. I was already his. I'd been his since the day I'd walked into his office and felt the world tilt on its axis. And tomorrow, we would both have to face what that meant. Rules. He pulled back enough to look at me, and the expression on his face was somewhere between amusement and frustration. Emma, I break rules for a living. I operate in spaces where laws are suggestions and morality is negotiable. And you're worried about workplace ethics. Someone has to be. Tears pricked my eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. Someone has to maintain some kind of boundary, because if I don't, if I let myself feel what I cut myself off, horrified by what I'd almost admitted. His eyes softened. What? Nothing.
Emma.
My name was a caress, a command. Finish the sentence. No, coward. But he said it gently, his thumb catching a tear that had escaped down my cheek.
Fine.
I'll say it first. I'm in love with you. I have been for longer than I want to admit. And last night, watching you smile at another man, I realized I'm done pretending I can keep you at a distance. The world tilted. You can't be in love with me. Why not? Because I gestured helplessly, searching for words that felt big enough for this moment. Because you're Dante Moretti. Because you're powerful and dangerous and completely out of my league. Because I'm just what? Just the woman I trust with my life? Just the person who knows me better than anyone? Just the reason I come to the office even when I could work from anywhere. His hands cupped my face, forcing me to see the truth in his eyes. You're not just anything, Emma. You're everything. A knock at the study door shattered the moment. We broke apart, or rather, I pulled away while Dante remained still, his jaw tight with irritation. What? His voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Marco opened the door, his expression apologetic. Boss, we have a problem. The men from last night, they've been asking questions about the woman you left with. The temperature in the room dropped. Dante's entire demeanor shifted, the vulnerable man disappearing behind a mask of cold calculation. How much do they know? Just that you left with a woman. Dark hair, navy dress. They're checking security footage from the bar and surrounding businesses. Then we need to move faster. Dante turned to me, his expression unreadable. Emma, I need you to listen very carefully. Those men work for the Valentino family. They're competitors, enemies, and if they figure out who you are, they'll use you against me.
How?
However they need to. Kidnapping, leverage, worse. He glanced at Marco. Get Luca. Tell him to prepare the safe house in the mountains. We leave in an hour. Wait. I grabbed Dante's arm as Marco disappeared. Mountains? Safe house. You can't just uproot my entire life because I made a mistake. His voice was hard, self-incriminating. I should have stayed away from that bar. Should have let you have your pathetic date with your mediocre accountant. But I didn't. I showed them that you matter, and now you're a target. The weight of what he was saying settled over me. This wasn't possessiveness or jealousy anymore. This was genuine danger, the kind that got people killed. For how long? I whispered. Until I can neutralize the threat. He pulled out his phone, already typing. Could be days. Could be weeks. I have a life, Dante. An apartment. Bills to pay. I can't just vanish. Your rent is paid through the end of the year. Your utilities are on autopay. Your phone will work anywhere. He didn't look up from his screen. I've been preparing for this possibility since the day you started working for me. You've been. Anger surged, hot and righteous. You arrogant, controlling, yes. He finally met my eyes. All of those things. But also alive and determined to keep you the same way. His hand found mine, lacing our fingers together. I know you're angry. I know this is unfair. But Emma, I need you to understand something. Those men, they don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. And if they get their hands on you, there's nothing I wouldn't do to get you back, including things that would make you hate me. The raw honesty in his voice stole my breath. What kind of things? The kind we don't talk about in civilized company. His grip tightened. The kind that would confirm every dark suspicion you've ever had about me. The kind that would prove I'm exactly the monster people whisper about. I should have been terrified. Should have been running for the door, calling the police, doing anything except standing there with my hand in his. But fear wasn't what I felt. What I felt was something far more dangerous. Understanding. Okay. I heard myself say. The safe house. We'll go. Surprise flickered across his face. Just like that. Just like that. I squeezed his hand, making a choice I knew I couldn't take back. But Dante, when this is over, when I'm safe and those men aren't a threat anymore, we're going to have a very long conversation about boundaries and consent and what a healthy relationship actually looks like. A real smile crossed his face, transforming him into someone younger, lighter. So, there's going to be a relationship. I haven't decided yet. But I was smiling too, despite everything. Ask me again, when we're not running for our lives. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead that felt like a promise.
Deal.
The safe house was a misnomer. It was actually a sprawling cabin nestled in the mountains 3 hours north of the city, surrounded by pine trees and silence, so complete it felt like another world. Modern architecture disguised as rustic charm, floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed beams, a stone fireplace that dominated the main living area. We'd driven in convoy, Dante and me in the back of his SUV, Marco and Luca following in a second vehicle. The journey had been tense, filled with phone calls in Italian that I only partially understood and long stretches of heavy silence. Now, standing in the main room while late afternoon light slanted through the windows, I felt the reality of my situation crystallize. I was alone with Dante Moretti in the wilderness, with only his bodyguards as witnesses to whatever happened next. "There are 3 bedrooms upstairs," Dante said, shrugging off his jacket. Beneath it, I caught the outline of a shoulder holster. A gun? Of course he carried a gun. "Take whichever you prefer. Marco and Luca will patrol the perimeter and monitor security feeds. We're completely off the grid here." Off the grid meaning no internet. The question came out sharper than intended, my nerves fraying. Satellite internet, encrypted, and your phone works, but every call is routed through secure channels. He moved to the kitchen, all stainless steel and black granite, and opened the refrigerator. Teresa had the place stocked. "Are you hungry?" I wasn't. My stomach was twisted in knots, but I nodded anyway, needing something to do with my hands, some way to feel normal in this profoundly abnormal situation. Dante pulled out ingredients with surprising efficiency: fresh pasta, tomatoes, basil, garlic. He moved around the kitchen like he belonged there, rolling up his sleeves to reveal forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars I'd never seen before. "You cook." I perched on a bar stool, watching him with fascination. "My grandmother insisted all her grandchildren learn," said a man who couldn't feed himself was useless. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She had strong opinions about most things. She passed 5 years ago. Heart attack, quick. She would have wanted it that way. He set a pot of water to boil, then started dicing garlic with practiced precision. "She's the one who raised me after my parents died. Taught me everything important." This was more personal information than Dante had shared in 3 years. I leaned forward, hungry for details, for anything that would help me understand the man behind the impenetrable facade. "How old were you when they died?" 12. The knife moved steadily, rhythmically. "Car accident." Or that's what the police said. My grandmother never believed it. He stopped, his jaw tightening. She thought it was the Valentino family. Revenge for some business disagreement my father had with them. The same family whose men were at the bar last night. Yes. He scooped the garlic into a pan, added olive oil. The sizzle filled the kitchen, followed by that distinctive aroma that made my mouth water despite my anxiety. My grandmother spent the rest of her life teaching me how to survive in a world where people like the Valentinos existed, how to be harder, smarter, more ruthless. "Is that when you decided to?" I gestured vaguely, not sure how to phrase it. "Become a criminal?" He added the tomatoes, crushed them with a wooden spoon. "I didn't decide. I inherited my father's businesses, legitimate and otherwise, his debts, his enemies, his empire." He glanced at me, his eyes dark and unreadable. I was 18, barely out of school, and suddenly responsible for 50 people's livelihoods and a network of operations I didn't fully understand. So I learned fast. The pasta went into the boiling water. Dante added basil to the sauce, tasted it, adjusted the seasoning. Every movement was controlled, competent like everything else he did. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked quietly. "Because you should know who I am." He turned off the heat, faced me fully. "What I am? You should know that I've done things that would horrify you. That I've made choices most people would call monstrous. That the empire I've built is constructed on foundations of violence and fear. Are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to be honest." He moved closer, bracing his hands on the counter on either side of me. Because if we're going to do this, whatever this is, you need to know what you're accepting.
I'm not a good man, Emma.
I'm a man who does bad things for reasons I can justify, but you might not. I reached up, touching the line of his jaw, feeling the scratch of stubble beneath my fingertips. And if I said I don't care, then I'd call you a liar. But his eyes had darkened with something that looked like hope. Or dangerously naive. Maybe I'm neither. I traced the sharp line of his cheekbone. Maybe I've spent 3 years watching you, seeing how you treat your employees, how you honored your grandmother's memory by funding a community center in her name, how you took care of Teresa's medical bills when her husband got sick. Maybe I've seen enough to know that you're more complicated than good or bad. His hand covered mine, pressing my palm against his face. You're going to destroy me. Or you'll destroy me. Never. The word was fierce, absolute. I'd burn my entire empire to ash before I'd let anything hurt you. He kissed me then, and it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, claiming 3 years of suppressed desire compressed into one moment. His hands tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, and I opened for him, tasting garlic and frustration, and something sweeter underneath. I'd imagined this moment more times than I wanted to admit. Late nights alone in my apartment, Dante's voice still echoing in my ears from some phone call or meeting. But imagination hadn't prepared me for the reality, for the way he consumed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. The pasta's going to be overcooked, I whispered. I don't care. But he pulled away, retrieving the pot from the stove with shaking hands. Actually, I care. My grandmother would haunt me if I ruined perfectly good pasta. The absurdity of it, discussing pasta after a kiss that had rearranged my molecular structure, made me laugh. Real laughter, the kind that released tension and fear and left something lighter in its wake. Dante smiled, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look almost boyish. There she is. A meeting. He reached for his phone on the nightstand, already scrolling through messages. Neutral territory. Me and Giovanni Valentino face to face. That sounds dangerous.
It is.
He glanced at me, his expression softening. But it's also necessary. I need to make him understand that you're not a viable target, that the cost of touching you is too high. And if he doesn't agree, then we go to war. He said it simply, as if discussing the weather. And I destroy everything he's built until he has nothing left but regrets. The casual violence in his tone should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel safer than I had in days. This was who Dante Moretti was, a man who would burn the world for the people he loved, and somehow, impossibly, I'd become one of those people. When? I asked. Tomorrow night. Giovanni agreed to meet at the Rosie estate. Don Rossi's old guard, respected by both families. He'll mediate. Dante set down his phone, giving me his full attention. You'll stay here with Marco and Luca. The property is secure. No one knows about it except my most trusted people. I don't like being left behind. And I don't like putting you in unnecessary danger. He moved closer, cupping my face in his hands. Emma, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to do, what I might have to do, it's not something you should witness. It's not the man I want you to see. I've seen enough to know who you are.
No.
His thumb brushed across my lips. You've seen me in control, civilized. But tomorrow night I might have to be something else. Something that proves I'm willing to do whatever it takes to protect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Not fear. Something more complicated. Promise me you'll come back. Always. He sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted like devotion and danger in equal measure. I've spent 3 years falling in love with you. I'm not about to lose you now. The rest of the day passed in strange domesticity. Dante worked from the cabin's home office, fielding calls and video conferences, while I explored the property with Marco as my shadow. The mountains stretched endlessly in every direction, pine trees and pristine snow creating a landscape so beautiful it felt unreal. We had lunch together. Sandwiches Teresa had packed, eaten on the deck while watching birds flit between branches. Dante told me stories about his grandmother, about growing up in Sicily before coming to America. I told him about my childhood in foster care, about the series of temporary homes that had taught me to pack light and expect nothing permanent. "Is that why you never put down roots?" he asked, his hand finding mine across the table. "Why your apartment barely has furniture? Why you never talk about long-term plans?" Maybe I laced our fingers together. Or maybe I was just waiting for something worth staying for. And now I'm terrified. The admission came easier than I expected. Terrified that I've tied myself to someone who could disappear at any moment. That I'll wake up one day, and this will all have been a dream. Not a dream. He pulled me into his lap, wrapping his arms around me like he could shield me from the world through sheer force of will. A risk. A gamble. A choice to believe that what we have is worth fighting for, even if fighting means people get hurt. Even then, his voice was steady, certain. Because the alternative, living without you, going back to that careful distance, that would hurt worse than anything the Valentinos could do to me. That evening, Dante cooked again. This time I helped, chopping vegetables while he prepared chicken and risotto. We moved around the kitchen like we'd done this 1,000 times, anticipating each other's movements, comfortable in the shared space. "You're good at this," I observed, watching him stir the risotto with patient precision. Cooking. Domesticity. Being normal. I set down my knife. "It's strange seeing you like this. So different from the office." In the office, I'm Mr. Moretti, the boss, the man who can't show weakness or uncertainty. He tasted the risotto, adjusted the seasoning. Here, I can just be Dante, the man who's hopelessly in love with his assistant and has no idea what he's doing. "You seem pretty confident to me." "I'm terrified." He turned to face me, and for once his mask was completely gone. "Terrified that I'll fail to protect you. That my world will destroy what we're building. That you'll wake up one day and realize you deserve better than a man with blood on his hands." I crossed to him, framing his face with my hands, forcing him to see the truth in my eyes. "I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes next, we face it together. That's what partners do." Partners. He tested the word, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I like that." "Good." I kissed him softly. "Because you're stuck with me now." We ate dinner on the floor in front of the fireplace, plates balanced on our laps, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about plans for the legitimate businesses, about wanting to transition more operations into legal territory. I told him about my dream of going back to school, maybe getting a degree in business management. "I'll pay for it," he said immediately.
No.
I shook my head. "If I do this, I do it myself. On my terms. Stubborn." "You love it." "I really do." He set aside his plate, pulling me close. "Everything about you, your stubbornness, your strength, the way you refuse to be intimidated even when you probably should be." We made love again that night, slower this time, savoring each touch, each whispered confession. And when we finally fell asleep, tangled together, I felt something I never felt before. Home. Not a place. A person. This dangerous, complicated, impossible man who'd somehow become essential to my existence. Morning came too quickly. Dante was already awake when I opened my eyes, dressed in a dark suit, his expression serious as he checked his phone. "It's time?" I asked, sitting up.
Soon.
He came to the bed, sitting on the edge, his hand finding mine. "Marco will stay with you.
Luca comes with me.
If anything goes wrong, if you don't hear from me by midnight, Marco has instructions to take you somewhere safe. New identity, new life. Don't." I squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. "Don't talk like you're not coming back." "I'm being realistic." "Then be realistically optimistic." I pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like desperation and hope. "Come back to me." "That's an order." "Yes, ma'am." His smile was genuine, if tinged with sadness. "I love you, Emma Reeves. In case I haven't said it enough, you haven't." I touched his face, memorizing every detail. So you'll have to come back and say it 1,000 more times.
Deal.
Who? The woman who laughed at my terrible jokes during your interview, who wasn't intimidated by me even when she should have been. He drained the pasta, tossed it with the sauce. I knew I was in trouble the moment you smiled at me. Trouble? The kind that makes a man rethink his entire life. He plated the food, slid one across to me along with a fork and napkin.
Eat.
You barely touched breakfast. The pasta was perfect, al dente, the sauce rich with tomato and basil and garlic. I ate mechanically at first, then with genuine hunger until my plate was empty and I felt almost human again. Better? Yes. I set down my fork. Thank you for cooking, for not being a complete monster about this situation. The night's still young. But his tone was teasing, not threatening, as if summoned by the mention of night. The sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The temperature dropped, and Dante moved to start a fire in the massive fireplace. Soon, flames crackled and danced, casting golden light across the room. I curled up on the leather sofa, watching him work. He'd removed his holster. The gun now locked in a safe, he'd told me, and looked almost domestic in his sweater and slacks. Tending the fire like this was a normal evening in a normal relationship, except nothing about this was normal. What happens next? I asked when he joined me on the sofa, maintaining a careful distance that felt both respectful and frustrating. After this threat is dealt with. He stretched his arm along the back of the sofa, his fingers playing with the ends of my hair. Depends on what you want. I want the truth. All of it. I turned to face him. I want to know exactly what you do, who you really are, what being with you would actually mean. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he spoke, his voice was low, measured. I run a network of operations throughout the city and beyond. Some legitimate, real estate, restaurants, import-export. Some less so. I move money for people who can't use traditional banking. I provide protection to businesses in certain neighborhoods. I broker deals between parties who can't afford to meet openly. He paused. And sometimes, when negotiations fail, I authorize actions that solve problems permanently. You mean killing people? I mean ensuring problems don't resurface. His eyes met mine unflinching. I don't do it lightly. I don't do it often. But yes, that's part of what I am. The fire crackled. Outside, an owl hooted in the darkness. And the Valentino family, they want what I have. Territory, influence, respect. His hand found mine, threading our fingers together. For years, we've maintained an uneasy truce. They stay in their lanes. I stay in mine. But lately, they've been pushing, testing boundaries. Last night was them gathering intelligence, seeing if I had vulnerabilities they could exploit. And now they know about me. Now they know I left a meeting for a woman, that I have something worth protecting. His grip tightened. Which means you're in danger until I can convince them that touching you would cost them more than they're willing to pay. How do you do that? His smile was cold. Dangerous. By reminding them why people fear the Moretti name. By making it very clear that the consequences of harming you would be catastrophic. He raised my hand to his lips. By being the monster my grandmother trained me to be. A chill ran down my spine, but it wasn't entirely fear. It was something darker, more primal. The knowledge that this man would become a nightmare to protect me. I should be terrified of you, I whispered. You should be. His thumb traced circles on my palm. Any sane person would be running right now. Then maybe I'm not sane. I shifted closer, closing the distance between us. Because all I can think about is how much I want you to kiss me again.
Emma.
My name was a warning and a prayer. If I kiss you again, I'm not going to stop. Then don't stop. Something snapped in him, his control, maybe, or his resolve to be a gentleman. He pulled me into his lap, his hands gripping my hips as his mouth found mine. This kiss was different from the first, deeper, hungrier, edged with the promise of what came next. I straddled him, my dress riding up, my hands buried in his hair. He made a sound low in his throat, his fingers digging into my flesh hard enough to leave marks. 3 years, he gasped against my neck. 3 years of watching you, wanting you, telling myself I couldn't have you. You have me now. I pulled back enough to look at him, to see the desire burning in his eyes. If you want me. If. He laughed, the sound rough. Emma, wanting you is the only thing I'm certain of anymore. He stood, lifting me with him like I weighed nothing. I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me toward the stairs, his mouth never leaving mine. Tomorrow, we'd deal with threats and danger and the complicated reality of what we were becoming. Tomorrow, I'd ask more questions, demand more answers, figure out how to navigate a relationship with a man who lived in the shadows. But tonight was for burning away 3 years of distance. For crossing every line we'd been too careful to approach. For discovering what it meant to belong to Dante Moretti in every possible way. He laid me on a bed in the master bedroom, his body covering mine. And as his hands began their exploration, I felt the last of my resistance crumble. I'd chosen this. Chosen him. Whatever consequences came next, I would face them. But first, I would have this moment, this night. This man who looked at me like I was worth more than his empire. Mine, he whispered against my skin. Say it. And I did. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, and I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, his chest warm against my back, his breath steady against my neck. For a moment, I let myself exist in that space between sleep and waking, where nothing was complicated, where I was just a woman being held by a man who'd whispered promises against my skin in the darkness. Then reality crept in with the sunrise. I was in a safe house in the mountains. There were men who wanted to use me as leverage against the man currently holding me like I was something precious. My entire life had been upended in less than 48 hours, and despite all of it, despite the danger and the complications and the absolute insanity of the situation, I felt more at peace than I had in 3 years. You're thinking too loud. Dante's voice was rough with sleep, his arms tightening around me. I can feel your brain working. Someone needs to think. I turned in his embrace, finding his dark eyes already focused on me. We can't just hide here forever. I know. His hand came up, brushing hair from my face with a tenderness that made my chest ache. Marco called an hour ago. The Valentinos have been quiet. Too quiet. What does that mean? It means they're planning something. He kissed my forehead, then reluctantly released me, sitting up. The morning light painted his bare torso in gold, highlighting old scars I'd traced with my fingers in the darkness. Each one a story, each one proof of a life lived on the edge of violence. But it also means we have time. Time to be strategic instead of reactive. I pulled the sheet around myself, suddenly aware of my nakedness in the harsh light of day. Last night had felt inevitable. Right now, watching Dante transition from lover to strategist, I felt the weight of what we'd done settle over me. What are you planning? The hours after Dante left crawled by with agonizing slowness. Marco tried to distract me, with conversation, with offers of food I couldn't eat, with reassurances that everything would be fine, but all I could do was watch the clock and wait. 8:00. The meeting was starting. 9:00. Still no word. 10:00. My phone remained silent. BY11. I was pacing the living room like a caged animal, my imagination conjuring increasingly horrible scenarios. Dante bleeding out in some warehouse, a betrayal, an ambush. All the ways this could go wrong. Miss Reeves.
Marco said gently.
You need to sit down. The boss knows what he's doing. Does he? I rounded on him. Or is he so focused on protecting me that he's making himself vulnerable? Marco's expression softened. He's been preparing for this confrontation for years, since before you came into his life. The Valentinos have been a problem for a long time. Tonight is just the final move in a very long game. What aren't you telling me? He hesitated, then sighed. The man who drove the car that killed Mr. Moretti's parents, he was a Valentino soldier. The boss has known for 15 years. He's been patient, strategic, building his power until he was strong enough to face them. This is about revenge. It's about justice. Marco's jaw tightened. And about ensuring his family, his future, is safe. That includes you, miss. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it. Dante, it's done. Coming home. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees almost buckled. Marco steadied me with a hand on my elbow.
See?
I told you. But I wouldn't truly believe it until I saw him. Until I could touch him and confirm he was whole and safe. 20 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness. I was at the door before the vehicle even stopped, my heart hammering. Dante emerged from the SUV, and even in the dim light, I could see he was unharmed. No blood, no visible injuries, just my dangerous, complicated man walking toward me with purpose. I ran to him, and he caught me, lifting me off my feet, burying his face in my hair. I'm okay, he murmured. I'm okay. It's over. What happened? I pulled back to look at him, searching his face for answers. Giovanni, and I came to an understanding. His smile was sharp, predatory. He knows that touching you means war that would cost him everything. He also knows that I have enough evidence of his illegal activities to bring down his entire operation if he tries anything. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. He set me down, but kept his arms around me. We'll never be friends, but we have a truce, one that includes you being completely off limits. So I can go home, back to my life. Yes. He hesitated. If that's what you want. I looked up at this man who'd turned my world upside down, who'd been watching me for 3 years, falling in love with me while I'd been doing the same. Who'd risk everything, his empire, his life, to keep me safe. I want to go home, I said slowly. But home isn't my apartment anymore. It's wherever you are. His eyes darkened with emotion. Emma, I'm not naive. I touched his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath my palm. I know what being with you means, the danger, the complications, the secrets I'll have to keep. But I also know that 3 years of pretending not to love you was the hardest thing I've ever done. So yes, I choose this. I choose you. He kissed me then, deep and claiming in front of Marco and Luca and the star-filled sky. A kiss that felt like a promise, like a beginning. Move in with me, he said when we finally broke apart. Not the safe house, my real home. Share my life, all of it, even the dangerous parts. Especially those. His hand cupped my face. Because I need someone who sees all of me and stays anyway. I need you. Then you have me. I smiled, feeling something settle into place inside my chest, something that felt like belonging. But Dante, we're getting separate offices. I refuse to be one of those couples who can't maintain professional boundaries at work. He laughed, real and unguarded. Agreed. Though I make no promises about what happens after office hours. I wouldn't expect anything less. 6 months later, I stood in Dante's, our, study, reviewing contracts for a new legitimate business venture. The afternoon sun painted golden squares across the Persian rug. Through the window, I could see the city spreading below us, beautiful and dangerous and home. Footsteps behind me, arms wrapping around my waist, lips on my neck. You're supposed to be in a meeting, I said, leaning back against Dante's chest. Meeting ended early. Giovanni is surprisingly agreeable these days. His hand splayed across my stomach. Probably because his daughter is marrying a Moretti. Your cousin is brave. Or in love. He turned me in his arms, his dark eyes soft. Sometimes they're the same thing. Like someone else I know. I looked down at the ring on my finger, a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. He'd proposed 3 months ago, on the anniversary of the night he'd found me in that bar, the night everything had changed. I must be crazy, I said, echoing words I'd spoken before. Probably. He kissed me softly. But you're my kind of crazy. My partner. My home. And your assistant. That too. His smile was wicked. Though you're absolutely terrible at maintaining professional boundaries. Me? I laughed. You're the one who locked your office door yesterday and details. He cut me off with another kiss. Irrelevant details. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, people were making deals and breaking rules and living in the gray spaces between right and wrong. Somewhere, the Valentino family was plotting their next move. Somewhere, danger waited. But here, in this moment, with Dante's arms around me and sunlight warming my skin, I felt nothing but certainty. I'd made my choice. I'd chosen the dangerous man with the dark past and the complicated present. I'd chosen love over safety, passion over predictability, a life that would never be boring or simple, and I'd do it again 1,000 times over. I love you, Dante whispered against my hair, in case I haven't mentioned it in the last hour. I love you too. I pulled back to look at him, this man who was mine in every way that mattered. My jealous, possessive, overprotective mafia boss. Your fiancé, he corrected. That too. He smiled, and in that smile, I saw our future. Complicated, dangerous, beautiful, perfect.